So it reads, in the instance of the Google search, house long to die in cold, that was recovered from the write-ahead log associated with the X browser state DB SQLite database with the timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m. was marked by Cellebrite as having this timestamp and being deleted. Did I read that correctly?
Fair. Yes.
So you use the words that Google search, house long to die in cold, was associated with the timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m. Isn't that what your words are in this report?
In that database, they are associated. That is correct.
Right. It starts with, there were 2 searches of interest that took place on the iOS device, and we're talking about Jennifer McCabe's device, correct?
The device that was identified to me as Jennifer McCabe's, yes.
That's identified to you as Jennifer McCabe. And it's what you talked about on direct examination as her device, right?
Yes.
It's not a mystery as to whose it is. It's not like you don't know, right?
In direct, I also use the phrase identified to me as Jennifer McCabe's.
Right, but your conclusion is the device you've been working on and analyzing for 2 years is the device of Jennifer McCabe.
That is how it was identified to me.
Do you have a different conclusion as to whose device it is?
I always am very, very careful that I did not assess the ownership. That was information that was given to me, not information that I personally assessed.
So are you uncertain as to whether the device you've been working on for 2 years is the phone of Jennifer McCabe?
The device that I've been working on for 2 years is the device that was identified to me by the Massachusetts State Police, Detective Tolley, as belonging to Jennifer McCabe when I began working and received that device, as stated in the evidence analyzed section on this same page.
So let's go, and we're talking about, again, to get back to the center of gravity, we're talking about a timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m., correct?
That is correct.
And when you issued your first report in May of 2023, the timestamp you were looking at was 2:27:40 a.m., January 29, correct?
I was looking at multiple timestamps associated with the same 2 searches.
Right. So what I'd like to do, you said multiple timestamps. What times are in the multiple category?
What I was tasked to do was to look at the times, the search, the Google search history, I'm sorry, not Google search history, the Safari history, which includes Google searches, associated with those 2 search terms within that 12-hour period. That was the particular task, not the task of looking at the 227, just for clarity.
Right, and I appreciate that, but my question wasn't that. My question was, I thought I heard you on direct examination, which is why I repeated the question, what I thought I heard on direct, but I'll ask you the question.
Sure.
You looked at and talked about on direct 2 potential times for a Safari search, which includes Google, one of which was 2:27:40 and the other one was 6:23 a.m. Is that correct?
I analyzed the meaning of those 2 timestamps.
Right, so we're just talking about 2 times, 2:27:40 and then 6:23. Is that correct?
So you are only talking then about the one that we're also talking about 6:24 a.m.
Okay, so we
Eastern time for clarity, because some of these records are in UTC, some are in local.
Fair enough. So you've got 2:27:40. You've got 6:23 and you got 6:24 that you were looking at, correct?
There are other timestamps that exist in the realm of what I was looking at, but those ones, correct, are the ones that are relevant in this report.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about.
Okay,
we're just talking about this report.
Yes.
And so if you look under relevant findings, at the very bottom paragraph, you say, second sentence, a Google search for how long to die in cold at approximately 11:23 a.m. and then how long TIDIE in cold took place at 11:24.
That is in UTC. I apologize for not having the timestamp format there, but that is the UTC time. The UTC time equivalent in Eastern Local Time would be 6:23 and 6:24.
So to be clear, in your report, you wrote 11:23 a.m. and 11:24, and you didn't put UTC next to it,
Correct.
did you?
They should. You are correct. That should say UTC. That is a typo.
And there's a significant difference between 11:23 and 2:27:40, correct?
11:23 is UTC, so its equivalent in Eastern Time would be 6:23. The artifact of 2:27 is already in local time, so that is in Eastern Time. So what we would be comparing is 2:27 and 6:23 and 6:24 to be appropriate. They're taking into account the data storage and which ones are in UTC and which ones are in local time.
I understand your explanation now.
Perfect.
But in this report, there is no UTC time down. You have 2 additional times in addition to the 2 times, 2 different numbers added to the 2, correct?
The UTC was a typo. It should say UTC next to those, and the chart shows all of those artifacts in EST and is clearly labeled that they're all in EST.
So you would agree that it's better stated to state it a different way than you have in your report?
I would say that both are equivalent. I should have had UTC there. But yes, it's easier for the audience to speak in EST. I would say forensics examiners typically communicate in UTC, but we translate for our reports. And I should have either communicated that in EST or included UTC. I will definitely contend that.
So in terms of your May 2023 report, your first report in this matter,
Yes.
you on page 5, in the sentence underneath the block paragraph state, in the instance of the Google search, house long to die in cold that was recovered from the write-ahead log associated with.
That's correct.
The X browser stage with a timestamp of 2027:40 a.m. was marked by Cellebrite as having this timestamp and being deleted. Did I read that correctly?
You read that correctly.
Now let's move ahead up at the top above conclusion. Importantly, at this time, you state, testing shows great inconsistency with timestamps parsed from this file. It is, however, definitive that the page existed in a tab.
Correct.
While a definitive reason as to why the timestamp is listing the time of 2:27:40 is unknown, the time is inconsistent with the timestamps associated with the same search. Did I read that correctly?
You did read it correctly.
So as of May 2023, you said the definitive reason as to why the timestamp is listed as 2:27:40 is unknown, correct? I'm just asking, is that what you wrote? Unknown.
I believe that the wording here is, sorry, I know I do use the word unknown. It says, while a definitive reason as to why the timestamp listing is the time of 02/27:40 is unknown. Sorry.
So you use the word unknown, your word in your report.
Yes.
Okay, so now what I'd like to do is to go on to the first proceeding in this matter. Do you remember giving testimony in a proceeding about a year ago under oath?
Yes, I do.
I am now going to go to that testimony, and if at any point you would like to have a copy of that, if it's the honor, if Your Honor would like, I will do it, but I'm going to start and then we'll see how it goes. Do you recall in that testimony stating that you processed the image in several forensic tools? I use Cellebrite Physical Analyzer, and then you list many other tools. Do you remember giving that testimony?
We have a page.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan, I thought I'd given it 1-12. My apologies if I didn't. It's June 14, 2024, page 1-12.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, do you recall giving testimony about the various tools you use for this timestamp?
I do.
And do you recall stating that those tools were commonly used digital forensic tools that are very standard. Do you recall that?
I'd have to see the wording that I used at that exact time.
Would it be helpful to refresh your recollection if I showed you that?
It would be great. I would greatly appreciate that because I do not recall the precise wording, but I know that I
Fair
spoke to the
enough. I'll
tools
get
I
that for
used.
you. And you talk more, and then you go down to the bottom. You go down to line 20, and you testified, we cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred. Did
Absolutely.
I read that correctly?
It's specifically pertaining to that particular artifact that in browser state DB that does not tell us what time a search occurred. That is correct.
Right. So you stated, and it was your statement then, we cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred, correct?
That particular artifact.
Okay, so now let's keep going. If you go to page 129 of this transcript,
I'm there.
at the top,
Sure.
line 1, 227 isn't necessarily one time when the tab was closed. That's in my report. I say it's undetermined. Remember we were just reading your undetermined
Absolutely.
in your May 23 report?
Correct.
Because there's a lot of things that can cause that timestamp to be there, including tab being moved, tab being minimized. The next sentence. I don't know exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry, but it's not, that timestamp is not indicative of the time of the search or any URL that's visited. But the first part of it is, I don't know exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry. Did I read that correctly?
You read 100% correctly.